The late afternoon air in Venice, Los Angeles, was still, with only the occasional hum of distant traffic breaking the silence. Jason Statham adjusted the hood of his gray sweatshirt, trying to keep a low profile as he stepped outside. His wife, Rosie Alice Huntington Whiteley, followed closely, holding the leashes of their two miniature dachshunds, Dolly and Peggy. The tiny dogs trotted eagerly, their nails clicking against the pavement in a rhythmic pattern. Jason turned to Rosie, his brow furrowed with concern. "Are you sure this is a good idea? All of us going to the gas station together, especially with the dogs?" Rosie sighed, clearly patient yet firm. "Jason, we've been over this. Dolly has been howling for hours because her favorite toy's batteries died." "I get that," Jason muttered, half amused, half exasperated. "But couldn't we have just ordered the batteries online and deal with days of Dolly's distress?" Rosie countered. "You know how she gets." Now Peggy's starting to pick up on her anxiety. "That toy is the only thing that keeps them calm." Jason shook his head with a small smile. "These two furballs are turning into human babies." As they walked, Rosie tried to lighten the mood. "See? It's a beautiful evening, and the dogs could use the fresh air. Besides, we might catch a lovely sunset on the way back." Jason exhaled, relenting. "Fine, but let's make it quick." The neighborhood was peaceful, lined with palm trees swaying in the golden sunlight. The tranquility, however, didn't last long. The sudden roar of motorcycle engines shattered the calm. Two burly bikers on Harleys sped past, their exhaust fumes polluting the air. One of them, a man with a thick beard, turned and sneered, "Hey, those mop dogs look like they belong in a janitor's closet." Jason's jaw tightened. He shot a glare at the bikers as they rode off, shaking his head in disbelief. Rosie instinctively tightened her grip on the leashes. "Are we in the wrong neighborhood for this walk?" Jason's expression remained thoughtful. "Most bikers I've met are animal lovers, but I guess every group has its bad apples." Rosie hesitated. "Maybe we should turn back. You were right about avoiding attention." Jason glanced toward the gas station, just 2 blocks away. "No, we're almost there. Might as well finish what we started." As they reached the station, Rosie suddenly stiffened. Jason followed her gaze and spotted the Harleys parked outside. Near the entrance, the same bikers were now harassing an elderly woman with a small dog. Their aggressive stance and mocking laughter made Jason's blood simmer. Rosie touched his arm. "Jason, maybe we should—" "No," Jason interrupted, his voice firm. "We're not walking away." As they approached, one of the bikers, Tucker, released the old woman and stepped into their path, smirking. Well, if it ain't the mop dog lovers again." Jason pulled back his hoodie, his piercing gaze locked onto the man. "The pet-friendly sign on the door is hard to miss. Your rules don't apply here." The second biker, Vince, squinted. His eyes widened in realization. "Wait a minute. Tucker, you know who this is? That's Jason Statham." Tucker's aggressive stance faltered, his expression shifting to reluctant respect. "Well, I'll be damned." Vince stepped forward, offering his hand. "Hey, we're big fans. Didn't know it was you. How about we forget all this? Maybe even get a photo together?" Jason didn't take the offered hand. His voice was cold. "I don't take pictures with people like you. You harass women and threaten animals. That's not something I overlook." Tucker bristled. "Come on, man. We're trying to be civil. Fans don't bully people just because they think they can get away with it," Jason shot back. Tucker's face darkened. In a sudden move, he grabbed Rosie's arm, trying to snatch the dog leashes. "Rules are rules," he sneered. "We say no dogs, so hand him over." Jason moved like lightning. In a blur, he had Tucker pinned against the wall, gripping his leather jacket with controlled fury. "Don't you ever lay a hand on my wife." Vince took a step forward, but Jason's next words froze him in place. "Here's my rule. You two run back to wherever you came from. If I see you when I walk out, the police will hear about this." For a moment, tension crackled between them. Then Jason released his grip, stepping back. The bikers glared but didn't move to stop him as he guided Rosie into the store. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed, casting an artificial glow over the aisles. The cashier, Mike looked up nervously. Everything okay out there? Jason nodded curtly. It's under control. Mike rang up their items quickly. Those guys have been causing trouble around here for weeks. Be careful. Thanks for the heads up, Rosie murmured, still shaken. Jason paid, then gently guided Rosie and the dogs out of the store. The bikers were gone. A wave of relief washed over them as they started walking home, but Jason remained on alert. As they passed the gas pumps, a flicker of movement in his peripheral vision sent his instincts into overdrive. The bikers were still nearby, lurking. Just as they neared the Harleys, Tucker lunged, aiming a kick at the dogs. Jason reacted instantly, pulling hard on the leashes. But Tucker's boot still made contact with Peggy. She let out a sharp yelp before, without hesitation, sinking her teeth into Tucker's boot, growling fiercely. "Damn mutt!" Tucker shouted, trying to shake her off. "You ruined my boot." Rosie, despite her fear, couldn't help but smirk. Dachshunds may be small, but they're fearless. You should have known better. Jason finally pried Peggy away, her little body trembling with adrenaline. Tucker, humiliated, lifted his boot as if to strike again, but Jason's voice cut through the moment like a blade. "Try it again, and I call the cops." Vince stepped closer, his eyes burning with anger. "You think you're better than us because you're famous? You disrespected us, and we know where you live." Jason's muscles coiled, ready. "If you were real men, you'd settle this one-on-one." Vince exchanged a glance with Tucker before sneering, "Our biker gang isn't just a gang. It's a pack, and a pack stays together." Jason's expression hardened. "Fine. What do you propose?" The biker's grin widened, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "Meet us at the gas station at 4 a.m. tomorrow," Vince said. "Bring your dogs. We'll take you to a secret location for a little challenge." Tucker chuckled darkly, his voice dripping with malice. "Let's see how your little mops fare against real dogs." Rosie's reaction was immediate and fierce. "Absolutely not," she snapped, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. "We are not putting our dogs in danger for your sick games." Her hands balled into fists at her sides, her eyes darting toward their two small dogs, now huddled nervously at her feet. To Rosie's horror, Jason nodded, his expression unreadable. "We'll be there," he said, his voice calm and steady, almost unnervingly so. His words were final, leaving no room for debate. Rosie's face twisted in disbelief as she took a step toward him. "Jason, what the hell are you thinking?" she hissed, lowering her voice as if the bikers might still be within earshot. "This isn't just some stupid dare. This is our dogs' lives we're talking about." Jason didn't answer. He simply turned on his heel and walked away, his hands buried in his hoodie pockets. Rosie's sharp, desperate questions fell on deaf ears as they made their way home. His silence only fueled her frustration, and she quickened her pace to match his, her voice rising. "Do you even care what happens to them? Do you have any idea what you just agreed to?" Jason remained quiet, his jaw tight, eyes locked on the path ahead. The tension between them crackled like electricity, unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. As they walked, the sun dipped lower, casting long, creeping shadows across their neighborhood. The streets, once familiar, now felt eerie and unwelcoming. Every rustling leaf, every distant engine rumble made Rosie flinch, her eyes darting anxiously over her shoulder. Jason, in contrast, remained unfazed, his stride steady and purposeful. But even he occasionally glanced back, subtle, cautious movements that spoke volumes. They both knew the possibility lingered. The bikers might still be watching. Their dogs trotted anxiously at their sides, sensing the tension. Rosie kept them close, her knuckles white as she gripped their leashes tightly. She glanced at Jason, fear and frustration warring in her expression. By the time they reached their house, the sunset's vivid colors had faded into muted grays, the darkness pressing in around them. Rosie fumbled with the keys, casting one last wary glance over her shoulder before stepping inside and locking the door. Jason did a thorough check of the perimeter, ensuring they hadn't been followed. Finally, within the safety of their home, Rosie couldn't hold back any longer. "You owe me an explanation," she demanded, her voice trembling. Why would you agree to this? What are you planning? Only then did Jason break his silence. I know you're worried, he said, his voice soft but firm, but I need you to trust me. Accepting that challenge was a tactical move to prevent immediate danger. Rosie's eyes widened. What do you mean? How does agreeing to meet those thugs again, with our dogs, no less, prevent danger? Jason moved to the window, peering out into the darkened street before drawing the curtains closed. If I had refused, they might have followed us home tonight. This way, we bought ourselves time. Despite his explanation, worry was still etched into Rosie's face. But surely you're not actually planning to go through with it, to risk our dogs in some twisted fight? Jason shook his head, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. Of course not. I have no intention of letting this escalate. I have a plan. Rosie's shoulders relaxed slightly, though uncertainty still lingered in her eyes. What kind of plan? I'm going to settle this tonight, Jason said, his tone resolute. Just trust me. I'll handle it before things get worse. Rosie's face paled. Tonight? Jason, that's too dangerous. We should call the police. Let them handle it. Jason shook his head. The police can't do much without concrete evidence. And if we involve them now, it might just provoke these guys further. Despite her obvious concern, Rosie nodded slowly. I do trust you, she said softly. Just be careful. Jason kissed her gently before heading for the door. I will. Lock up behind me and don't open the door for anyone. As Jason stepped out into the cool evening air, he could hear the faint sounds of Dolly and Peggy playing inside. The normalcy of the sound contrasted sharply with the tension of the situation, strengthening his resolve. He had to put an end to this threat, quickly and quietly. His first stop was back at the gas station. The same cashier from earlier was still on duty, looking surprised to see Jason return. Everything okay, Mr. Statham? He asked, concern evident in his voice. Jason nodded, keeping his tone casual. Yeah, just forgot something earlier. Say, those bikers, do you know where they hang out? The cashier's expression darkened. Oh, them? Yeah, they're bad news. Their clubhouse is a few streets over. Big place with a gate. Can't miss it. Got some kind of wolf logo on it. Thanking the cashier, Jason set off. It didn't take long to spot the clubhouse, its iron wolf insignia looming on the gate. Steeling himself, he pressed the buzzer. A gruff voice crackled through the intercom. Who's there? Jason Statham. I need to speak with your leader. A pause. Then the voice returned, laced with surprise. Wait, Jason Statham? The actor? Hold on a sec. The gate slid open. Jason stepped forward, his mind focused on what came next. He wasn't here to fight. He was here to end this, on his terms.